fresh on me. Opportunity. It's always an honor and privilege to stand before the people of God and deliver His message. Our wife Jennifer, beautiful as she is, thank you. When I told her I wanted to go to my dad's for Father's Day, she was like, "We can make it happen." I hate driving, so she does part of it, and I do the rest. I do the city driving. She'll do the highway driving. But it's great to have her by my side. And y'all First Lady, Joyce Johnson, my mother, I love you. When I was a kid, I watched my dad. I watched him as he talked to people and as he prayed, as he spoke, as he talked. I've always admired. So it's more than an honor and a privilege to be here doing this in front of him. And I would like to thank y'all for the great care that y'all took of my father and how y'all watched over him. I appreciate that. And as he said, we left the kids at home. Because if we didn't, I'd have been getting that this morning. Amen. Yeah. All right. The scripture has been read in your hearing, but I will read it again. Luke 15, verses 8 through 10. And I'm reading from the NRSV. Or what woman having 10 silver coins, if she loses one of them, does not light a lamp, sweep the house, and search diligently until she finds it. And when she has found it, she calls together her friends and her neighbors, saying, "Rejoice with me, for I found the coin that I have lost." And just so I tell you, that there is joy in the presence of the angel of God, in the angels of God, over one sinner who repents. Heavenly Father, as I decrease, may you increase, Father. Let your words flow through me and you speak to your people in Jesus' name. Amen. As Peyton Manning took the field for his last season, he had to be asking himself, how important am I? As he was benched halfway through the season, he had to be asking himself, how important am I? And as he stepped onto the field for the last time during the Super Bowl, in the back of his mind, he had to be asking himself, how important am I? Now, no matter if you were a fan of his or not, you couldn't help but notice how important he was. Not just to his team, but to the NFL as a whole. For the NFL, and for us, one could say that for 18 years, he was the most important player to play the game. But just as Peyton asked himself the question, we too need to ask ourselves the question. How are we important, and to whom are we important to? Now, if we dig into the parable of the lost coin, we can see that the woman stopped to consider what had been lost. And what had been lost was a silver coin that was worth 4 cents. Now, if we was to lose 4 cents, we would not give it a second thought, because it has no value to us. Because that amount of money does not matter to us. It does not affect us. It does not affect our lives or the things we can go out and buy. Because to us, it's just 4 cents. We pass by pennies every day. When we go through the checkout, if the lady gives us all of our change but the penny, we say that's all right. It's just a penny. But when something affects, but when it's important to us and it affects us, we stop and we think about it. When it's our health or one of our family members' health, or when it's a loved one that has died, we stop to consider what is lost. When things are important, we stop. We don't go, oh well. We don't go, oh, to the next one. And we don't say that's just life. We stop to consider what was lost. And just as the woman stopped to consider and think about her lost coin. She was concerned over her coin. She may have been concerned because instead of the 40 cents she now had 36. She was unable to buy something that she really needed. So if we stop and we actually look at this text and we see past the coin, the picture becomes a little bit clearer. The coin is actually us. That is us, lost in darkness.
Well.
The Greek translation for being lost is to be destroyed fully. It's also used as a metaphor to devote or give over to eternal misery.
Yeah.
That is us lost, unable to see our way out of the darkness that we have put ourselves into. But hold on, because the text also said that she lit a lamp. And that lamp represents Jesus, who shines into the darkness. But not only did she light a lamp, but she also had to do some cleaning. And this is Jesus shining his light in, cleaning out all of our junk, and pulling us out of that darkness. The reason she was searching for this coin is because it was of value. To her, to light a lamp, clean the house, and diligently seek after this coin, it had value. So just think if we was to have $40, but when we went into our pocket at the store, we only had 20. We would stop, start thinking about it. We would go home, turn over couches, chairs, tables, and everything we could till we found that money because it had value to us. Now $20 means a lot. $20 is a half a tank of gas. Amen. But that had value to us. So we're going to stop and search and look for it. So that 4 cents had a whole lot of value to her and in that time. And when she had found it, she rejoiced. Now, in the Greek, rejoice means to have joy, take joy in another, and to celebrate with one another. So when she found that coin, she rejoiced. She didn't just sit at home by herself. She called her friends, she called her neighbors and said, come celebrate with me. For I have found that coin that I have lost. She was rejoicing because something important had been found. What she wanted all to know that she found it. She was rejoicing because the effort she had put into finding it had paid off. Yeah. Again, the coin is us. And after God has put in all that work, and we have returned home, the text says there is joy in the presence of the angels of God when one sinner returns home. The text did not say they was joyful because God put in all that work. The text said they was joyful because one sinner returned home. But instead of joy, because that which is lost is found and has returned, when something of value is at stake, there's no mountain we won't climb, no rain we won't go through, no valley too low enough we won't walk through it. There's no sleet, there's no snow, there's nothing that will stop us when it is of value. We do not stop until we have found that which we have lost. And God is no different. He will let you wander for a while, but then he will come searching, saying, it's time to come home. Yet we still ask ourselves, who are we important to? And how important are we to God? But just so you know, God has always had time for the individual. You take Zacchaeus, who Jesus found in a tree, who was a tax collector, who was rich, but he was also considered a sinner. He told Jesus that he would give away half of his possessions to the poor, and that if he defrauded anyone, he would pay it back tenfold. And if that was not good enough, they would let him know and he would make it good. See, God always had time for the one. But because the Son of Man had came to seek that which was lost, he saw Zacchaeus. Jesus found the woman with the issue of blood. As she tried to crawl out the crowd after touching the hem of his garment, he told her to stop. Asked her, "Why did you touch me?" And she said, "Well, I've had this issue of blood for 12 years. And he said, "Don't worry, your faith has made you well. Go your way." But you have to understand the significance of this woman. See, back in those days, a woman with an issue of blood was considered unclean. She couldn't do anything, couldn't touch anyone, couldn't be around anyone because they thought they would become unclean if they touched her. So her being healed by Jesus at that point in time was a miracle, and it meant something. Jesus has always had time for the one. And then God at times has also made special personal visitations. And Jesus found Paul on Damascus Road where he knocked him from his horse. And he took his sight. And this is where our chief sinner became the chief Christian, so to speak. This is where the chief persecutor was changed. He stopped killing Christians and started saving Christians. And if God can't make it himself, I guarantee you he would send somebody in his place. God sent Philip to meet the Ethiopian eunuch so that he could help him understand the scriptures that he was reading. You ask, why would God send someone to the eunuch? A eunuch is a man that's castrated, a man left emasculated. He has no vigor, he has no strength, no power, no courage. A man like that, God sent somebody to speak to. But I tell you, God did that because he wanted the man to know and understand that which he was reading, and he wanted him to know who he was reading about. God don't care who you were, he cares who you're going to be. But God has always took the time for the one. Now, if you're still asking yourself, how important are you to God? Then listen up, because you should know how important you are because of what he sent his son to do for you. And God said he gave his only begotten son, that whoever so believed in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. That means his only begotten, that means there's no other, no brother, no sister, and no one coming after him. He goes on to say that whosoever believes in him shall not perish. To perish means without beginning and without end, never to cease and everlasting. We will not perish believing in him. This is how important we are to God, that he would send his son to die for us. You are important to God for the promise that he made you. In John 6:37, Jesus said, "Everything that my Father has gives me will come to me. And anyone who comes to me, I will never drive away." Jesus is saying that if you come to me, I will keep you, I will hold you, and I will never let you go. You will be mine for eternity. You won't have to worry about calling on him one day and the phone just rings. You won't have to worry about when you're sick if someone's going to come to visit. You won't have to worry about your enemies gathering around you because he said, "I'll build a table in the presence of your enemies." So this is how important you are to him. When you're down, he comes to see about you. When you're sad, he sends someone to make you laugh. When you're happy, he sends someone to celebrate. With you, that's how important you are to God. How should we react to how important we are? We should react like the woman with the lost coin. She rejoiced because of what was found. When she recovered it, she called people to come and celebrate with her. Now she is able to do what she needed, but she did not rejoice alone. She called her friends, she called her neighbors, saying, "Come over to my house, celebrate with me." We should react like that every time God sends a new soul into our midst. We should rejoice and be exceedingly happy that he sent somebody to us. Jesus said, "I stand at the door and knock. And if anyone hears my voice and lets me in, I will come in and sup with him and him with me." You're that important that Jesus is knocking at your door, waiting for you to open it. You're that important that Jesus is saying, if you open the door, I will come in and I will sup with you. See, that tells me that Jesus is waiting on you. You're not waiting on him. How should we react to this love that is so widespread? 1 John 4:19 said, we love because he first loved us. So that means before we were a twinkle in our mom and dad's eye, God knew us. That means before we took our first breath, God loved us. And just as the woman rejoiced over finding the coin, we need to rejoice because while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. We should rejoice knowing that he has appointed our soul a place. That's a songwriter wrote. Now when I met my Savior, I met him with a smile. He healed my wounded spirit, and he owned me as his child. Around that throne of grace, he appointed my soul a place. So now I'm on the battlefield for my Lord. And that's how we should react to that love that God has for us. I'm not going to hold you too much longer. I just want to leave you with a little bit of this. This woman with the coin lost it, found it. Just as we were lost, Jesus found us. I say to you this morning that the black church has lost it. How can you say we haven't when all you need to do is turn on the TV and you see our young brothers and our young sisters being killed by police? Or you turn on to a different station and you see our young brothers and sisters being killed by one another. I tell you this morning, the black church has lost it. Now this morning I tell you that the civil rights movement is not meant for the back of Black Lives Matter. I tell you this morning that the civil rights movement is not made for the back of any politician. I tell you this morning that the civil rights movement was placed on the backs of black Christians, whether you be African Methodist or Baptist. I tell you this morning that they had the power of God behind them. I tell you this morning that the black church has lost it. And if we want our community to be whole again, we need to step up. Dr. King told the group, don't let nobody take your manhood. But we have let them take our manhood because we're scared to step up and say something when something is wrong. This morning, we've lost something. I tell you that the devil don't care. Just like the devil don't care how you come to church, they don't care when we march. It doesn't affect them. It doesn't matter. They see it and it's over next week. Because they don't care about us marching. But if we hold on to God's unchanging hand, and if we can bind ourselves together just for a little while, I can tell you how we can get some things done. All right. If we can bind together and say we're not going to spend our money, then they're going to start listening. We got to do what they did back in the day that was effective. It's not just that they marched, it's just that they didn't spend their money. When they boycotted the buses wouldn't get none of that money, so they had to do something. So we got to do more than march. And I'm not talking about screaming and yelling, because Jesus did a lot and never screamed and yelled at anyone. But we got to come together and in prayer and in one mind, on one accord, to get things done. We are important to God as a people and as individuals. And God doesn't want to see any of us suffer. But if we cannot work together and come together on these little issues, how can we come together on anything big? But the civil rights movement is our movement. So if you came in this morning wondering how important you were, I'm here to tell you, you are important. And more than that, you are important to God. So never let anyone tear you down and tear you up, because you're a child of God. And being a child of God means you have certain rights and privileges. So hold your head up high, because you are important to God. God bless.